Think about your psyche for a second. When you feel entirely depleted, what is your psychological power bank?
Right, like what do you plug into to justify your own existence?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we assume it's money or status or, keeping up appearances. But today, we are looking at a deeply uncomfortable possibility.
We really are.
What if your ultimate savior, the thing keeping you going while simultaneously draining the life out of you, is actually your own exhausted, never-ending busyness?
It is a really jarring thought to confront. And, well, that exact tension is what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're exploring a single, incredibly rich source today.
Right, it's a sermon titled Mirror, Mirror Part 2 by Reverend Dr. Angela B. Martin.
Yes, and our mission today is to basically shatter our preconceived notions about one of the most famous sibling dynamics in history, the story of Martha and Mary.
Because through Dr. Martin's historical and psychological analysis, we're going to examine how busyness masquerades as a virtue, and how it actually acts as this heavy, impenetrable shield against true self-reflection.
I mean, we think we know this story so well, right? Martha is in the kitchen stressing out, Mary is sitting on the floor.
And Martha gets told off for being a neat freak.
Exactly. But to really grasp why Dr. Martin's analysis of this source is so groundbreaking, we have to look at where this story lives. It's only found in the Gospel of Luke.
Which is important because Luke had a very distinct editorial and theological agenda.
He did. It completely frames how we should read this. Because if you read ancient historians from that era, women are largely invisible.
They're just not there.
Right. They are relegated to the extreme margins, if they're even mentioned at all. But Luke makes a deliberate choice to pull them center stage. He mentions 13 women that are found nowhere else in the historical gospel records.
Wait, 13?
Yeah. Nearly a third of his entire book deals directly with women.
A third. I mean, in the first century Mediterranean world, that is a massive, highly intentional editorial statement.
It really is. There are 15 distinct texts in his account where women are the primary characters. So he is making a pointed declaration to his audience that, in this new kingdom of God, men and women matter equally.
He's deliberately documenting the women who walked and talked and served, ensuring they aren't erased by history.
Exactly.
But I have to stop you there, though, because when I first read this source, my immediate thought was, well, women have been cooking and hosting for millennia.
Sure. Yeah.
Like my own grandmother cooked for 12 people every Sunday, and she never once had a psychological breakdown and yelled at the local priest.
That's a fair point.
So what makes Martha's specific moment in the kitchen a crisis, rather than just like a stressful Tuesday?
Well, to understand the crisis, we have to reconstruct the oppressive, heavy historical reality that Martha woke up to every single day. We tend to project our modern conveniences onto her.
Where we imagine a modern kitchen with running water,
a climate-controlled room, a gas stove, all of that. But her reality was brutal. I mean, her day began in total darkness. Long before anyone else was awake, she was already engaged in grueling physical labor.
She wasn't just turning a dial to preheat an oven.
Not at all. She had to coax the embers in the courtyard oven back to life from the night before, her hands covered in ash. She was hauling massive, heavy clay jars of water from the village well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was grinding raw grain into flour by hand using a heavy millstone, shaping dough, baking bread, and this is all before breakfast is even served.
And keeping that kitchen perfectly wasn't just about feeding people or maintaining a culinary standard, was it?
No, it was a strict adherence to kosher laws, meaning her cooking was actually an act of religious faithfulness.
So her kitchen was her sanctuary. Those pots and pans were her offering to God.
Precisely. She was doing exactly what her entire world told her was required to have any worth at all, because her world wasn't allowed to be any bigger than that courtyard.
Which brings up that cultural concept Dr. Martin highlights, zenua. Am I saying that right?
Yes, zenua. It refers to the private, hidden life. The cultural expectation of the time was that respectable women simply did not go out unaccompanied.
Their lives were meant to be entirely invisible to the public eye.
Exactly. To give you an idea of how extreme this social constraint was, the very terminology used for a prostitute in that era literally translated to one who goes abroad.
Wait, are you saying a woman could legally and socially be categorized as a sex worker simply for walking down the street to the market alone?
Yes. That was the profound social risk of simply existing in public. It was a system of complete legal and social erasure. Women couldn't even testify in court.
Because legally, their voices carried absolutely no weight.
Right. They were categorized alongside Gentiles, minors, and social undesirables. They were considered the property of their fathers and later their husbands.
And spiritually, they were actively blocked from participating. I mean, the historical quotes Dr. Martin includes in the sermon just stop me in my tracks.
They are brutal.
Like Rabbi Eliezer, who was a highly prominent teacher of the law, he actually put in writing that teaching Torah to a daughter was like teaching her blasphemy.
He did. His exact words, preserved in the historical record, were, "Let the law be burned rather than entrusted to a woman."
That is just devastating to read.
It gets heavier when you realize that sentiment was woven into the daily liturgy of the people. Every single morning, devout men of that era recited a blessing, thanking God that they were not a Gentile, a slave, or a woman.
Wow. So someone in Martha's own household might have been praying those exact words while she was up before dawn, grinding the grain for their breakfast.
Very likely, yes.
A man thanking God he wasn't her. When you frame it like that, my grandmother making Sunday dinner isn't a fair comparison at all.
No, it really isn't.
Martha wasn't just throwing a dinner party for some friends. She was operating a high-stakes corporate compliance department entirely by herself. And in this department, failure didn't just mean a bad performance review. It meant total social and spiritual ruin.
Exactly. Her busyness wasn't some quirky personality trait. It was the only lane she was legally and culturally allowed to drive in. It was pure survival.
And this powder keg of societal pressure perfectly sets the stage for the anatomy of her breakdown, doesn't it?
It does, because into this high-stakes environment walks Jesus, accompanied by maybe a dozen or more dusty, hungry disciples.
And the requirement of sacred hospitality in the ancient Near East was immense.
Oh, it was an absolute mandate. Martha would have had to go out to the road to meet them, arrange for the washing of everyone's feet, and instantly begin preparing a massive, ritually pure feast for a large crowd.
And she is doing this completely alone.
Yes, while her sister, Mary, just sits there.
I feel like any human being would snap under that sudden, massive weight. But the specific language Luke uses to describe Martha's state of mind is what really elevates this source.
The Greek word, right.
Yeah, because most English Bibles just translate it to say Martha was distracted, which, sounds so trivial. It sounds like she lost her train of thought because she heard a noise outside.
Right. But the Greek word Luke uses is perispash. It does not mean simply preoccupied. It literally means to be pulled apart or to be netted, like fish caught in a dragnet.
To be netted?
Yeah. It implies being surrounded, captured, and violently pulled in multiple directions.
The insidious thing about a dragnet, though, is the physics of it. If you stay still, you're trapped. But if you thrash around and try to busy your way out of it...
the mesh actually pulls tighter and tighter around your gills.
Exactly. It pulls tighter.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize perispash. Martha is thrashing. The more she tries to manage the situation through her labor, the tighter the cultural and psychological net pulls around her.
It's awful.
And the grammar Luke uses indicates a continuous action. This wasn't just a fleeting feeling or a bad afternoon. It was her way of life.
It's like a spiritual treadmill that keeps speeding up. She can't step off without face planting, so she just runs faster and faster, mistaking the sheer panic of running for actual virtue.
Yes.
She isn't just annoyed that Mary isn't chopping onions. She is glitching under the weight of an impossible system.
And look at the physical manifestation of that glitch. The text says she storms in and stands over Jesus. The Greek word there is ephistemi, which means looking down upon someone.
Wait, she literally stands over the guy she believes is the Messiah and scolds him.
She completely inverts the master-servant dynamic. She demands, "Lord, don't you care?" The host is speaking to the guest, to the teacher, as if he is the one failing in his duties. Wow. She is so captured by the net of her own busyness that she tries to pull him into the net with her.
And that inversion is where Dr. Martin pivots the sermon, turning this ancient breakdown into a sharp mirror for us today. Because busyness rarely announces itself as a problem.
No, it doesn't look like a vice.
Right. It sneaks through the back door wearing an apron. It disguises itself as immense responsibility.
And Dr. Martin outlines the 5 faces of busyness to help us identify our own reflection in Martha's struggle. The first face is productivity as worth.
Okay, so tying your value to what you do.
Exactly. In Martha's culture, her value was strictly measured by meals served and a household maintained. Today, we live in a culture that asks, what do you do? Long before it asks, who are you?
Right, and if we stop accomplishing, we face a severe identity crisis, which naturally creates this second phase, which is control.
Oh, absolutely, control.
Because if my worth is tied solely to my output, then I have to control everything around me to ensure that output never stops. It's that exhausting belief that if I stop moving, my family, my job, my entire universe will just collapse.
It is an incredibly heavy burden to carry, convincing yourself that the world runs on your energy alone. And that desire for control often morphs into the third phase, which is people-pleasing.
Right.
This is the addiction to being indispensable. Martha needed Jesus to be impressed. She needed the meal to be flawless.
Because we equate being needed with being loved. We run ourselves into the ground, taking on extra projects at work or constantly volunteering because we are terrified that if we stop being useful, people will discover we aren't worth loving just for existing.
That fear of being exposed is exactly what drives the fourth phase, avoiding stillness. Dr. Martin calls this the quietest and most dangerous phase. Busyness acts as a safe shield.
I want to push on this idea of the shield because it feels like modern society is entirely architected around avoiding stillness.
It really is.
Like we aren't just doing chores anymore. We are actively filling every silent void. We leave the TV playing to an empty room just to have background noise. We stand in an elevator for 5 seconds and instantly pull out our phones to scroll.
Yeah, we are terrified of a blank calendar.
Because if there's a blank space, we might actually have to sit with ourselves.
But in that silence, there is no shield. The source argues that this constant noise protects us from unprocessed grief. It protects us from ugly truths we don't want to admit.
Or profound questions about our lives, our careers, or our relationships that we are too afraid to answer.
Exactly. If we get quiet enough, we might have to look in the mirror and hear what our conscience or what God is trying to tell us. Busyness isn't productivity in this context. It is pure avoidance.
It's avoidance, dressed up in a very convincing costume of importance. Which brings us to the final phase, appearance over presence.
Yes. Martha was so caught up in performing her faith for an audience, and the heartbreaking irony is that the audience was Jesus himself.
She was performing for him while completely missing the actual presence of the one she was trying to serve. It's the tragedy of proximity without intimacy.
So how do we escape? If the dragnet just gets tighter the more we struggle, what is the way out?
Right, Dr. Martin calls the resolution to this tension the radical sit-down. We have to look at how Jesus responds to Martha's outburst and, equally importantly, the radical nature of what Mary was actually doing.
Because Jesus doesn't yell at Martha. He doesn't dismiss her or tell her she's ruining the evening.
He doesn't scold her at all. He says her name twice. Martha, Martha.
And to understand the weight of this, we have to look at the Hebrew tradition. When God repeats a name in the scriptures, like Abraham, Moses, Samuel, Simon, Saul, it is a signal of profound intimacy.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it means a life is about to change direction. It is a moment of deep tenderness. He is saying, I see you. I fully see the net you are caught in.
He diagnoses her soul. He tells her she's worried and upset. And the source material compares this to water that has been stirred up so violently from the bottom that you can't see through it anymore.
All the sediment is swirling around.
She's broadcasting on 17 radio frequencies at once and getting nothing but static. And then, he says, only one thing is needed. Not her perfectly baked bread, not her frantic performance, her presence.
Which brings us to Mary's choice. Mary is sitting at the Lord's feet. Now, to modern ears, that just sounds like she's sitting on the rug listening to a story, perhaps being a bit passive.
Yeah, just hanging out.
But culturally, that specific phrase, sitting at the feet of a teacher, was the technical, recognized posture of a rabbinic disciple.
Wait, so Mary wasn't just avoiding doing the dishes.
Not at all.
By taking that specific posture, she was claiming a seat at the theological table, a feat that every law, every tradition, and every man in that room told her she was legally and socially forbidden to take.
Precisely. She was stepping entirely out of the Xenua, that hidden life, and placing herself firmly in the realm of intellectual and spiritual scholarship.
I mean, that is a massive, courageous act of civil disobedience. Yeah. She isn't being lazy. She is smashing the mirror of society's expectations.
And Jesus defends her. When Martha demands that Mary be put back in her socially acceptable place in the kitchen, Jesus says, it will not be taken away from her.
Wow.
Dr. Martin describes this moment as nothing less than a civil rights declaration for the kingdom of God.
A civil rights declaration.
Yes. Jesus acts as Mary's legal and spiritual advocate, decreeing that a woman's right to learn, to sit, to receive is non-negotiable.
That totally reframes the story. It's not about chores versus chilling out. It's about claiming your worth outside of what you physically produce for others. And that brings this historical and psychological deep dive right to our own doorstep.
It does. The transition from the ancient text to our modern reality is seamless but deeply uncomfortable. The source leaves us with a stark warning.
Which is?
It is tragically possible to be busy for a good cause or busy for Jesus in the context of the sermon while being entirely absent from it. You can run yourself ragged in honor of something while completely missing the essence of it.
Martha had the bread of life sitting in her living room, and she handed him a to-do list.
So,
Dr. Martin poses 3 deeply uncomfortable questions, and I want to pose them directly to you, the listener, right now. Don't just brush past these.
they are so important.
Question 1. What is your specific noise? You have to name the busyness you keep choosing. You can't put down what you refuse to identify.
Right.
Question 2. What are you avoiding in the silence? If the noise is a shield, what is it protecting you from? What might you hear if you actually got quiet?
That's the hard one.
And question 3. What would it cost you to sit down? Because transformation isn't free. Mary sitting down cost her sister's approval, probably the respect of the room, and the comfort of the status quo.
Absolutely.
If you choose to stop performing, it will cost you. It might cost you approval, old codependent habits, maybe even relationships that were built entirely on your willingness to be overly busy.
Those questions require immense courage to answer honestly. And to build on Dr. Martin's powerful analysis, I want to offer a final thought for you to carry with you.
Please do.
We spent a lot of time today talking about how we trap ourselves in this dragnet of productivity. But if Mary's act of sitting down was a civil rights declaration that challenged an entire societal system, it forces us to ask a terrifying question about our own modern environment.
It's okay.
When we constantly demand that others validate their worth through their output, when we praise our coworkers for skipping lunch, when we applaud our friends for constantly hustling on 3 hours of sleep, or when we secretly judge someone for simply resting, are we actually the ones holding the net?
Wow.
So the next time you glorify exhaustion in someone else, pause and ask yourself, are you trapping them in the exact same system you are so desperately trying to escape?